Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Tech Report Podcast, episode 182. I'm your host, Luke McCready, and I'm here with Scott Wasson, Jeff Campman, and Ben Funk. This is the official podcast, The Tech Report, at techreport.com, the number one place for news and reviews in the computer hardware world. And if you're not listening live, be sure to check us out at our Twitch channel to see us live for your next episode of our podcast at twitch.tv/The Tech Report. We'd be glad to have you join us in the future for our live stream so you can offer questions to our panel, and more importantly, so you can see our smiling faces.
Excellent, man. Thanks for the intro. Guys, if you missed last week, Luke is our new host. Jordan is hit the road. So Luke is here, and Ben is also a new contributor to the site. And then I assume you know Jeff Campman, who's our managing editor.
Hi.
Anyway, we have some stuff happened this week. Not a ton of stuff happened this week, but I think we probably got a pretty good discussion to have around Windows 10 to start, because that's a big thing that happened. Mm-hmm. So, guys, have you upgraded yet? What is your Windows 10 status?
I have not. I have not received my email notification or whatever you get when you're supposed to be able to update. So I'm just waiting. And I've also heard bad things from far too many people to make me feel confident. So
you're being safe and
yes.
Okay. Ben, what about you?
No, I'm still waiting on some other software that I rely on. I haven't gotten any notifications yet on any of our PCs either, so I see no reason to push it.
Okay, yeah, the little app that comes up, they call it an app, the little thing in the taskbar that notifies you that you're eligible to upgrade to Win 10. Like
when I was your age, they called that a program.
I know. Well, they called it app way back in the day. A killer app, right, was the thing for early prompting upgrades for PCs, and then app kind of wasn't a big deal, and then it became a big stinking deal with phones. But it really goes to roots, honestly. So anyway, but I signed up for it, but this is the PC. My main PC is the one I'm speaking to you on, that is hosting the Twitch chat, that is hosting the podcast, and that particular system is not getting upgraded until I'm really comfortable that it's good. And you know how Microsoft is doing this? If you signed up and you said, yes, I would like to upgrade, I'll take your free upgrade, that doesn't mean you get it right away. They're rolling it out to, I guess, not stress the internet, because 190 different countries are getting this OS.
Well, what I think they really want to do is just have overeager people install it and then see what goes wrong and then fix those problems before everybody else starts to get it. I think that's why it's being phased.
Well, and I think also that certain hardware configurations that have trouble, that they're working on, they'll wait on your hardware config if they're worried about a driver issue during the upgrade. So they're doing some telemetry on the upgrades and then making decisions about who gets what when based on that. Luke, what are you doing? Did you upgrade yet, or?
No, not yet. I'm afraid to lose my computer for the other work I need to do, but I figure in 2 to 4 weeks I'll give it a try.
Oh man, this is a conservative bunch, guys. Are you running it in a VM, guys, or anything?
I tried. It didn't like it.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, I've got it on. I've been deploying it here in Damage Labs. I've got it on a bunch of test systems on both sides of me running right now. In fact, I'm doing some disk imaging to get it going on all the systems. And it's a funny experience, because I didn't play much with I didn't really play with the previews because I've just been busy with hardware. But they changed the look a lot, and at first I was like, man, what is this junk? I don't don't, it all changed, and what are they doing? And then after I'd used it for an hour or two, maybe less, I kind of just looked up at one point at the screen and everything just went snap, and I was like, oh, that looks pretty slick. And all of a sudden, it was that's a new default and everything else is going to look old,
Have you tried Cortana yet?
Yeah, I was like, Cortana, can you explain Microsoft software licensing to me?
Yeah, not even a human can do that.
How'd she do?
Well, it was shut down, blue screen. It was over. So I was hoping maybe I'd get some straight answers about what's an economical way to buy this, but no. But no, I haven't really played with Cortana yet because the test rigs don't have microphones. And also because I'm not like benchmarking Cortana at this point, but it does, like, the basic drivers and stuff are all available. I'm using GeForce cards on most of my test systems for the CPU side right now, and have been using a Radeon split switch just recently because I got more new GeForces basically. Anyway, and the video drivers are there, games run, things seem to basically work. Like, there's no real issue there. The funny thing is, it feels a lot more like Windows 7 than like Windows 8.
Well, that's good.
By that I mean, like, I keep wanting to, every time I want to reboot a system, I like start that terrible motion of moving the cursor up into the top corner of the screen to bring out the little charms bar so I can go down and choose restart. And it's nowhere to be found. Like, it's not there. You have to go over to the start menu. And every time I do it, it's like, like, that was not what I'm used to, but it was better. Like, thank goodness they were going back to that.
Feel like you're home again.
Yeah, and not, I mean, it's not just a question of what's familiar. It's also a question of, like, what is good. And there was an awkwardness to the hot corner, slide all the way down the screen, restart motion. It wasn't very good. And it's better when you click a button and a menu pops up and you click another button. I don't know. It's just basic stuff that they got wrong in Windows 8 that they're backtracking on, and it feels better. The other thing, though, guys, you know, like when you put in a USB key in Windows 8, it says tap here to decide what to do with devices. Windows 10 does the same thing. It's still... So I am out. I'm done. Like, I give up on good UI prompts for good computers. So if you have a great computer with a beautiful 4K display, IPS, like huge, wonderful, that's not touch, you're going to get the wrong prompt. If you got like a crappy $179 Windows tablet, you get the right prompt.
Well, I guess, you know... which sells more, you know? I don't know.
In volume?
That's why.
Yeah. I don't know. How many millions of secretaries are tapping on their screens and nothing happens? I mean, it doesn't seem like the right choice, you know? I don't know.
Not just secretaries, me too. I tap my screen all the time and wonder why it doesn't respond.
Yeah.
Nice bet, nice.
Did that do anything? Or?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Okay.
So speaking of Windows 10, it came with that new solitaire function that you have to pay for. Is that right?
So, yeah, Ben, you wrote this up. This was interesting.
Yeah, this was awesome. Microsoft in one fell swoop has completely saved gaming on the PC, right? Just again, that's right. This is bigger than games for Windows Live or anything like that. The solitaire software, obviously it's improved. It looks nicer, but now it's ad supported, and you can subscribe to solitaire to take the ads away. And I just couldn't wait, you guys. I had to subscribe right away.
So this is not pay money to take the ads away. This is pay money to take the ads away for a short span of time, and then pay more money. Yeah, right. And then pay more money to do it again. That's amazing, and that's solitaire. Like, that's the most basic. Like, was it always included before, but now we're taking it away thing.
Yeah.
Anybody want to defend that? Or
No.
What's to defend, right?
just wondered.
all the cool kids are doing it. I guess that's one reason Microsoft did it, but I don't know.
I mean, I guess they're looking for money because I don't know.
When you're giving the operating system away for free, you got to make it up somewhere.
You know,
I guess.
Yeah, I guess it would. It would be great if they had like an awesome like Steam type store for Windows programs, and they took a percentage there and then made the operating system free. I think they can make more money doing that. But this just stinks. So I don't know. I guess the other thing is that there are some interesting things about getting Windows 10 if you want. Okay, first of all, if you did the upgrade thing, you're eventually going to get rolled out. But if you want to go download it, you can just go download it and put it on a USB stick or an ISO and burn it to a disk. Like if you're a caveman and you chisel things into rock still. But you can then do an upgrade of your system. But apparently the way this works is that if you have a Windows 8.7 system, you can't do a clean install of the OS with your Windows 7 or 8 key. You have to do an upgrade install on your system to Windows 10, and then you can install Windows 10 as a clean upgrade with your Windows key. But there's some kind of you have to step through the upgrade script. So if you're one of those people who doesn't trust the upgrade script, you're just getting a little more work to get your free upgrade. It's still a free upgrade, so I guess I don't want to complain too much, but I think that's the deal.
Do any of you trust the upgrade?
I used it for Windows 8.1 from 8, and I think maybe I did it from 7 to 8 because I'm that lazy.
I have never upgraded Windows, so in place.
You know, I used to not do it, and then one time, it got better over time, right? And the last couple times I've thought, well, I'll give it a shot, and it was never a problem. It actually was quite good. The script is decent, and it basically is a clean install in the sense that it's a fresh directory, and they're just bringing over your settings using a script. And so you're not there's not a cruft that gets brought across. It's actually just making sure that your applications still work. So I didn't have any trouble with it last time. I'll probably do it this time just because, like I said, I'm that lazy.
Is that what you did for your test rigs?
No, never. No, not a test rig. Test rigs are all clean installs and imaging, disk imaging, and all that stuff. And I've been getting to know Windows 10 on my test rigs today and yesterday with the final release, so that I can have correctly installed systems. And that means what things do you turn off? How do you kill Windows Update? Because they don't want to kill Windows Update. I had an Intel testing document there just disable the Windows Update service, because it's been kind of a question of Windows is going to force you to take some of the security updates after a short period of time. You could delay them, but you couldn't really completely avoid them. And so I've got that figured out. They will not change. And so, but no, that's all testing procedures and lab stuff and all that. So that's different. But did you guys see this? Let's see if I can pull this up. Something happened.
That's awesome. That's the best error.
I can't get it quite all in frame. This is from our forums. And it was Dean Joe who posted this. And then I encountered this myself today on my system.
Nice.
In my case, what I was doing was I was using the Windows 10 Media Creator to make a USB stick for installing Windows 10. It was not upgrading my machine. But I got I downloaded the whole thing, and I got halfway into it was setting up the files, and it just croaked. And then I got the Windows 10 set up. Something happened. And that happened 3 times. So something happened I maybe 6 times total. I don't know.
Was there anything in the event viewer or anywhere else that you could find it?
I didn't go dig in too far. I guess I need to do that and see if I can figure it out. But the funny thing about this error, you can totally see why they made it, right? Because if they said user error or unknown error, people would blame themselves. It's not friendly. It's the whole thing is they're trying to be better. They're trying to be nicer, and it's nicer, except that it's so completely vague that you can't. You could Google it, but this has become a meme already, basically. So you Google it and you get the meme. You're not going to get technical help, and there's no identifier of any kind other than that. So. Maybe don't do that, especially with a really common error. And also, this is too easy to get. I didn't do anything wrong. I put the USB key in the drive. There's plenty of room. I ran the program that had worked for me on another USB key, and it just failed, and there was no... I don't know why, and it's too easy to get because a lot of people have seen it. So anyway, that's my favorite, though. That's one of the best error messages I've ever seen, I think.
Yep.
It's purple, too. Not every error message is purple, or maybe they all are now.
That tells you it's like a setup thing, right? But it looks like a Windows 8 setup thing, being that sort of purpley color. Although Windows 10 has got this kind of blue vibe going, too, so I don't know.
They didn't bring back the Windows XP installation song, did they? I miss that song.
Oh, man.
No, I don't think there's any...
I actually listened to it this week. I'm not ashamed to say that.
I set up too many PCs. It scarred me forever.
We're going to see if we can pipe that into the episode somewhere.
So I guess that one of the next things that needs to happen is, I guess DirectX 12 is not out. It's like they're going to roll it out. Like it's for Windows 10, but I saw a thing today that's saying DirectX 12 is coming soon. Maybe it was just old I was reading, but is DX 12, I get maybe it's finaling out with the OS. You guys have no idea.
I have no idea.
Know.
Okay, I confused us all. I'm sorry.
That's fine. I mean, there's nothing out there that can take advantage of it right now, right?
Yeah. Well, that was. I think we should address this. I think we had a question in the comments about this. Let's just go ahead and talk about DX12. Someone asked, will we see any DirectX 12 benchmarks? As far as I'm aware, the DirectX 12 benchmark that's available is something that the guys at FutureMark cooked up, the guys who make 3D Mark, and it's an API overhead test, and it's like, we're going to do a bunch of stuff and see if we can do it faster with this AI than that AI. And it was kind of like AMD used it for PR around Mantle, and then Microsoft used it for PR around DirectX 12. It's not a game. It's not anything you can play. It doesn't tell you how a game would perform. And you know, I mean, the FutureMark guys have this like track record on this stuff too. Has anyone? I actually did this at one point. Have you ever looked at like the idea behind FutureMark, behind 3D Mark, is that it's not to perform just like current games, but it's to model the performance of future games. And it's never been a good like leading indicator, which is one of the reasons that we just test with games, because it like, you know, one of the 3D Marks like was just like massively vertex shader bound, and you even saw like hardware makers making chips that just had a lot of vertex throughput so they could sell chips to Dell at the right price in volume, but it didn't run games better than a chip that didn't have that vertex throughput. So it was a weird architectural balance that was literally just because someone cared about that benchmark. Anyway, I am excited about DirectX 12, but I'm really hoping that we get games or ports or things that show us something tangible more than an overhead test. I'm glad the API overhead is going down, but if you're asking me to like compare API overhead on an NVIDIA card versus an AMD card, or this API versus that API, in the absence of an application that matters to people, it seems like marketing and not really good information. So,
wasn't that something that like Ubisoft talked about would have been helpful with Assassin's Creed Unity or something along those lines? That there were so many people and so many draw calls that there was something that a newer API could have helped them with.
I wouldn't be shocked. I don't know. I didn't hear him say that, okay, but I wouldn't be shocked, right? Anytime you get like a lot of scene complexity in current DirectX 11 and 10 and all that, then you have the possibility that the complexity overwhelms the API's model, which is not very good for handling tons and tons of stuff. So yeah, I think that we're going to see good things. One of the questions is, when will we see DirectX 12 games? Are you guys aware of any?
Nope.
I think what's probably going to happen is, and this is me speculating, I've heard some people sort of saying, oh, you know, they're coming. You would think that one or two of these studios that are kind of leading indicators on like developing new stuff will have ports or versions for DX12 of new games or current games that have just come out that they make at the behest of, NVIDIA, AMD, maybe Microsoft, just to sort of move things along, get some extra funding to do a DX12 version in order to demo what's possible. And I think that's probably where it starts, and probably that happens before the end of the year, that we get a game or two.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised that nobody's actually said that yet, at least that I've heard.
Oh, that it's coming?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I haven't heard anything about a specific game coming. I wouldn't be surprised if there was one, but I really think it's going to be that type of thing. It's like a showcase special more than a game developed for it. The reality is that, of course, these games take like 3 to 4 years. Like AAA games take 3 to 4 years to build. And if you're wanting to take full advantage of a new API that lets you have more complexity and do a whole bunch of really cool new things, then you have to start building your assets with that target in mind in terms of polygon counts, budgets, texture sizes, shader complexity, all that stuff. There probably will be, well before 4 years pass, games that are better in DirectX 12 and add stuff on compared to like what the console version has or whatever, or DX11 version has. But my suspicion is that it's just going to take a long time before you have like a fully realized, like taking advantage of the API type game experience, just because, you can't build for something that doesn't exist, and it just now is coming out.
Right.
So there's no early access of that for game developers in any way?
Well, a little bit. DirectX 12 happened pretty quickly. They were announcing things. It's maybe been a year or so.
That feels about right.
I mean, not that they weren't working on it internally at Microsoft before then, but I don't think it really started to take off until you kind of had Mantle took off, then OpenGL guys started something with Vulkan, and Microsoft started something with DirectX 12. I mean, it hasn't been long, and I do think that like the Unreal Engine folks and Unity and the guys who make the Crytek, the guys who make the big game engines, have probably been working closely with Microsoft, but I doubt that they've had anything longer than 6-8 months that is like functional in a big sense, like really close to complete, because this stuff has been, hasn't been around that long. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm excited about the prospects there, but it does seem like it could take a while, and hopefully I'm wrong, but it will get surprised. I don't know.
Now, you mentioned Assassin's Creed. I'm seeing a picture here where there's just it looks like, I think it's Assassin's Creed Unity, and it looks like there's several hundred people in a courtyard. That's a lot of objects. That's a lot of bodies to render in a game. I think the highest I've ever seen in a game was when I played Hitman Absolution, and it's not up to Assassin's Creed standard in that regard, but you walk through this bustling Chinese market, and there's just hundreds of bodies around you, and it's part of the deal that you have to blend in and try to make a kill. But I was really impressed when I saw that scene to say, wow, I don't know how my graphics card is doing this. I don't know how it's rendering so many bodies, and they all have their clothing, and they all have their facial expressions, they all have their own animation. That's got to be tough. But based on an article I read, that's going to be one of the advantages of DirectX 12, that is going to be able to handle assets like that a lot better. That, lots of characters on screen, and also artificial intelligence, if I remember.
I don't know about AI. I think that the reason that AI could get smarter with DirectX 12 is because there's a lot of CPU overhead in making all the draw calls that you make now, and doing things according to the model that they use. There's more opportunity for threaded submission in DX12, and essentially, I think that lowering the overhead and improving the threading can free up CPU cycles that then can be used for things like artificial intelligence. I think that would be the hope. But you do understand that like games are still being co-developed for the consoles with those Jaguar CPUs, right? Those aren't very fast.
Yeah.
So I don't know about the AI like really getting smart. One of the things that kind of made me sad about the choices that Microsoft and Sony made when they got the chips from AMD for the consoles was that I don't think the AI could get to be super complex when your per thread performance is as low as those things are. They have lots of threads, but each one of them is kind of not going to be all that quick. So it's I don't think you get super smart AI. But I do think there's huge potential just to cut down on slowdowns on the PC. You know how like console games, a lot of times the ports are terrible. Some of that is the API overhead on the PC. Some of it's not, but the technical side of it, I think we should see more consistency once we get to kind of this new era where things are better on the ports and all that, because the PC isn't this like high overhead API zone like it is now.
But we'll have to wait a while to find out.
Yeah, well,
it's
like
the
I
sad
said,
bit.
Yeah, maybe like I said, we may get one of those showcase games before then. So
I hope so. I hope to see what they can do.
Yeah. Let's talk about. I guess we're done with Windows 10. Let's talk about this new memory type, because this is the most revolutionary news of the week. Really, I mean, this is Intel and Micron, right, Jeff?
Yeah, this is an Intel Micron joint venture, and what they did was they introduced this new type of memory. Well, they're calling it a new type of memory, the first type of new memory since NAND in 1989, and they're calling it 3D XPoint. They spell it 3D XPoint. I don't know why. It's going to be confusing forever, but do you want to take a crack at it, Scott?
Oh, I want to
I'm
take a crack
going to butcher
at
it.
Oh, what is it?
Okay. So 3D XPoint it's really interesting. It's supposed to be this high performance, super dense, non-volatile memory, and it's supposed to have performance that's 1,000 times faster than NAND flash, and it's supposed to have 1,000 times the endurance. Those were Intel and Micron's claimed numbers. Mm-hmm. And it's 10 times as dense as DRAM and almost as fast. So this has some interesting possibilities as far as not only what they're really targeting it at first is applications where they need to get huge amounts of data closer to the CPU. That's their proposed use for it, like big data analysis and all this stuff. But I think it has implications above and beyond that kind of. So, yeah, it's really interesting. And then the other part about it that's neat is that it's not transistor based. Like, this is more of, I guess, a phase change memory, where like the material of the cell itself changes to represent the state of the data within it, or store a bit or whatever. That's the big thing about this, I think.
Well, that's one of the reasons that it can have a lot more endurance.
Yeah, and the density, because all of the material in this memory cell is used to store data, which I guess is not the case with NAND. I'm not super familiar with the nuts and bolts of NAND, but so that's another way they improve the density, and they can stack it. The 3D in the name just isn't just for show. It's stackable. Like, the dies will be layered. So they can, that's another way they're increasing density. The first dies, they say, are 128 gigabits, which I think is pretty comparable to NAND, but they expect that to scale as time goes on, so it'll get a lot more dense.
This is, stacking is the thing that is kind of happening in memory right now. We've seen it with, like we talked about, the Radeon Fury and HBM. And other cases, but this is another type of stacked memory. It's interesting because it's kind of an in-between performance-wise and endurance-wise between DRAM, which is very fast and has, like, basically, doesn't wear out. And then NAND flash. And NAND flash it does wear out. It has endurance issues over time eventually, and is slower. This is denser, though, I guess, than both, which is pretty significant. And changes the rules for a lot of things. One of the things I thought was interesting is that apparently the individual cells are accessible using this structure, because I think that's why they call it cross-point, because they've got kind of a switching arrangement with the stacking, and you can have more direct access to things. That means, for instance, like with NAND flash, you have to open like a block of a certain size, and then you can read it out, modify it, then you have to write the whole thing back. That you get write amplification, which has implications for endurance, because you have to write over data that already exists with just to make a change to something next to it. And in this case, I don't think you have to do that as much. So it has the potential for faster I/O that's more efficient. So it changes a lot. And I think that what we're hearing out of Intel and Micron is you can put this in a big data setup. You can put it somewhere. These are places where they're high margin and stuff is expensive. And probably it's when they first start shipping this, there's not going to be a ton of it, and it's going to cost a lot. But if you're doing the right kind of work, you can afford it, and it's going to be nice, right? And I think in that case, scale. Right. I think in that case, it would basically, for the most part, replace NAND flash, but also possibly, there are some. I think we wrote an article about. There's a research paper at MIT where some researchers basically got rid of DRAM. So these MIT researchers. They took a computer and then they made I guess it was an ASIC, I think, that networked a whole bunch of NAND flash together, and that was how they sort of unified the system architect, memory and storage, I think was what they were trying to unify. But it has all the downsides of NAND. So this NAND. Here's the deal. The reason that made sense for the MIT guys to do is because the type of applications that they were working on were big data. They were very large data sets. And it turned out that having an intermediate DRAM between the flash and the CPU did not speed things up.
Right.
And so they built a solution that just skipped that and did some nice things with how the NAND flash was linked together and accessed. That is a model that could work really well for big data with 3D Crosspoint, right? And I'm kind of thinking that that's what some of the hints that we got out of Intel about what they might do with this.
This is what everybody has been trying to do, kind of in the memristor field. Except those are I think more complex than this in what they're supposed to do. You have potential for machine learning and all sorts of things. This is just storage / memory unified together without some of the complexities of memristors, I think. But so it's slightly worse performance than DRAM, but it still unifies storage and memory, and that's the really neat thing about it.
Well, I'm not sure that it does. It depends on what people do with it. Yeah. But there's an architectural possibility for really big data sets where this replaces DRAM. There's also a possibility that clearly, if this stuff gets to be cheap and ubiquitous and fast, then it replaces NAND, because it's better and it does the same type of thing. Because it's non-volatile, it doesn't have to be refreshed, so you don't have to go out and strobe it in order to keep the contents of the memory fresh. And that saves power tremendously compared to DRAM, which has to be refreshed. So the interesting thing about this, you could speculate on, and I kind of did some of this on Twitter, was what if you could have a phone or a mobile SoC that just had some kind of a DRAM cache to mitigate some of the writes, because you do have an endurance issue still here, but and then you made this your last level of storage for that instead of going out to a disk file system. Now you might want still just to have that because we're used to that for some types of storage, but you could have a very large amount of accessible system memory that's basically just a bunch of this stuff. Yeah. I don't know whether that's really possible, but as they get better with these new memory techs that are coming online, the stack stuff, the high bandwidth, putting it close to the chip, making it low power, and potentially something like this that's fast and non-volatile, then there are possibilities for changing the architectures of systems to either, mitigate the role of DRAM or eliminate it, or something, or extend the storage hierarchy in a different way, a different direction. And so you see this, and you see the performance data that they're giving us, these claims about speed versus DRAM, and it's like, wow, what can we do, and what would that mean? Because if you had a huge amount of memory in your system, and it was all low power, and it was similar in performance to DRAM, I don't know. It'd be a lot better on my iPhone with 1 gig where I can't switch between 3 apps without reloading. So yeah, I think we're going to see more innovation along these lines with stacking and different types of memory going forward.
Right, and the other thing, like a lot of people are like, is this real? Is this something that has commercial potential? Intel and Micron are big companies that are well versed in memory, and so I don't think this is just a pipe dream. They say they're sampling it to well, they're not sampling it. They're already developing products on it, and they're expecting sampling for select partners later in the year. So this does seem like something that has the potential to actually make it out into the world. So. Right.
Yeah, this is kind of almost a product announcement, not just a technology thing. Like it's yeah. So it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it's really neat. So, okay.
When do you think it'll work its way into consumer systems?
Oh man, I don't know.
Yeah,
5 months.
Yeah. Right. When will somebody take the server thing and stick it into a desktop PC? Because wow, I mean that's a different question maybe, but no, it's going to take time. I bet it's going to be really expensive to start.
Well, we'll try to be patient.
Yeah, I think this is for consumers. I don't know, but 5 years probably. It has that feel about it.
Oh man, that's depressing.
Yeah, I don't know. We can hope. But.
Okay. Now, Scott, you're going to tell us about a game you've been playing recently. What's it called?
Oh man, I just put something in here. I want to talk a little bit about Rocket League. Have you guys played Rocket League at all? Or you seen it?
Never heard of it.
Not even heard of it.
So
it's like driving. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, the way I understood it is it's like half driving, half soccer. I haven't actually played it.
Yeah, I mean it's like it's $20 on Steam. I think right now it's on the PlayStation 4's like little free game of the month subscription deal for PSN, and there's even cross play between PC players and PS4 players, which is kind of funny. But it's basically like soccer, but you're driving a car. But it reminds me more of like the old Speedball game on the Amiga. If you guys ever had Amigas, that was an awesome game. The Bitmap Brothers, man, it was the best. Anyway, so Rocket League is just what you'd think, but it's exceptionally well executed, and it's a ton of fun. And it's you use a controller to play optimally, and you can play against bots or you can play online, and then it has local up to 4 players. So it does split screen, 1, 2, 3, 4 player local. So and you could like have 4 local players playing like on the couch in the living room, and then make a team and go online and play a 4 against 4 match against somebody else. So it's simple, it's fast, it's easy to pick up. People understand it right away. There's only a couple things you do. Basically, you just run into a big ball and bump it, and everybody else is trying to do the same thing and make it go into a goal or keep it out of yours. And then there's like these little boost pellets that you can pick up as you drive around, and you need those to like rush to make a shot before somebody else, or rush to knock the ball out before they score. And then you can also kind of just jump up. And when your car jumps up, then you have to do that because the ball bounces around. So sometimes you need to jump up to hit it, right? But then you kind of lose directional control and drift around. And so it's just chaos. It's just chaos.
Does it turn into like a big rugby scrum and everybody's like all shoving on the ball from the same direction?
No, it's too fast paced for that. So there's a lot of collisions,
Cool.
but no real damage from the collisions. You just go bouncing around and whatever. But instead of everybody just kind of sitting there pushing on a ball against each other, like you're getting knocked around as you hit each other, hit the ball. So yeah, it is usually a big scrum. But if you're good, I've kind of started. I'm not good, but I played enough to realize if I lay off the gas a little and set back and let the ball settle in front of me and then run up and hit it, that there's some possibilities for control that you wouldn't have otherwise. So, I'm still got to figure that out. It's just extremely fast paced for the most part, though. So it's a ton of fun. There are only so many games that, if you have a home theater PC, I've kind of been exploring this, are good on the couch with a controller with other people. And those are the ones that make you want to use a home theater PC in your living room instead of going, to sit with the mouse and keyboard and game. And this is one of them. And it's kind of a hot thing right now. So if you get a chance, check it out. Yeah,
I'll have to give it a try. Yeah, I'm looking at some of the screenshots. It has a twisted metal vibe to it. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, it is. And it runs great on pretty much anything, too. I'm thinking about using it for CPU benchmarking. The problem with that being that, I don't think you need much CPU to make it.
Just see how many instances you can run, 48.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it's maybe a little bogus to worry about that, but I don't know. I may try it anyway just because, there's a point to be made kind of about how much CPU do you need, and because it's fun. So we'll see.
Should we talk about phones for a bit?
Yeah,
works
I think
for me.
so.
Well, the first one on their agenda here, it looks like the OnePlus 2 is out now. Now, I remember reading about the OnePlus 1 a year ago that it was just the budget phone to get. What do we need to know about the second one?
That it will then be the best one to get, the best budget phone to get.
Okay.
They've upgraded it in lots of different ways. The new Snapdragon 810, we talked a little bit about it last week. One of the big surprises to me was that they were sticking with a 1080p screen. They're calling it a flagship killer, but a flagship with a relatively large screen that isn't like top of the line. It's not really a flagship at that point, then, is it? Maybe
if it's not top of the line.
Yeah, if it's meant to be a flagship killer, doesn't the display need to at least match current flagships with all their 2560 by 1440 displays?
Oh, resolution wise?
Yeah.
I guess it just needs to be something that people choose instead of a flagship, right? This is a cheaper phone.
I think the way OnePlus spun this was, we don't inflate our numbers just because, you only get as many pixels as you need or something. So,
oh, come on.
I don't know.
Well,
I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that, but
the whole flagship killer thing has always been like OnePlus did that last generation, and it sounded great because if you looked at the specs, amount of RAM, number of CPU cores, display resolution, then they look like they were as good as the top Android phones or the iPhone 5S or whatever at the time. There's a big difference between having more cores and having the best CPU. iPhone 5S was a better CPU than the last OnePlus. We tested that. I mean, it's not even close because the CPU core the Apple built custom core is really good. But on paper, it looked like, hey, for the same price, I'm getting something awesome. Then you picked it up and looked at the display next to a premium smartphone, and the contrast ratio difference makes you go, wee.
Well, they've improved the contrast ratio this time, right? They gave some impossible number, but maybe
1500 to 1 is kind of reasonable sounding if you've been looking at TVs a lot, I guess.
Well,
monitors.
I wouldn't
with a claim
those numbers
1,000,000 to 1.
Yeah,
I mean it's BS, but
look, I mean the contrast ratio on an OLED is infinity because divided by zero error. I mean, they just turn off the pixels and it's completely black. But IPS panels can get a lot better than the one in the original OnePlus one. And if they got a better one here, I would rather have more contrast than more pixels. So there you go. I'll settle in with them and say, okay, I'm happy with that if they improve the contrast ratio. I want good color clarity and maybe something that's pretty much calibrated out of the box reasonably and all that stuff. But I think that maybe is more important than a PPI, at least once you get to where they are already. Right.
And the other thing about the OnePlus One that isn't quite, well, maybe it is kind of flagship, is that the base model only has 16 gigs of storage and no micro SD slot. So, Luke, you're not putting your audiobooks on the entry level. They do have a reasonable price increase to go to 64 gigs. It's like a $60 difference. So that's not so bad. But that base model with low storage is a little bit of a bummer.
Okay, so let's review this. It's the 3 gig RAM 16 gig flash version is $329, and the 4 gig RAM 64 gig flash version is $389. So everybody should buy the $389 one, unless you just don't care. But that's a reasonable price for what they're selling, right?
Absolutely. It's just, I don't know, not the choices that I would make. That's all. But it's all about what I want, right?
Well, I mean, that's how you approach stuff, right? I mean, that's, what is, does this make sense? Is this something as a consumer I'd be interested in? Sure. But this is better. I think the thing that I want to do is spend some time with the camera on it too. That's another one of the weak areas of the original one, and they're supposed to have improved that too, right?
Yeah, the pixels in this one are supposed to be bigger. I think the lens has more elements, maybe, which is supposed to improve image quality. And it's got a dual LED flash. It may not be like a dual tone flash like these ones that can adapt to white balance changes, or they can adapt to the ambient white balance, but more light, I guess. Does 4K video recording, 120 FPS video at 720p. I mean, it's a pretty good camera, it seems like, at least on paper.
Yeah, well, that was the thing last time, was they're like, oh, we got more megapixels, and then every
you can ignore the megapixels, I think, and just say, if they've made the pixels bigger and they have decent signal processing, like it might be a better result.
Yeah.
Well, even at 13 megapixels, that's an enormous number of individual pixels. How many do you really need, right?
Right. But last time, part of their flagship killer pitch was more pixels.
True.
And to their credit, this time they didn't add more megapixels. They did the right thing, right? And although they didn't move back to 8, which might have been even better.
Yeah.
But at least they increased the size of the individual pixels by upping the sensor size or whatever. So, yeah.
So it says, one other thing I wanted to note, we talked about the Snapdragon, but they say there's a cooler running version of this SoC in it, like it's a version 2.1 810 or something.
Yeah, the Snapdragon 810 version 2.1 is supposed to deal with some of those issues with heat.
So, that was, and it's also got USB-C port. That's the charging apparatus for this thing.
That's great.
So, it's one of the first consumer devices I've seen with it. So that's kind of neat. So
that's something I'm jealous of. I was really hoping my phone was going to put that in and even looked like it, but they didn't.
Yeah, one of the big things that was a selling point in the OnePlus One was the CyanogenMod OS, which was super customized and super customizable. And they've kind of had a falling out since then with those guys. And so now they got their own version of Android called Oxygen OS. And it's kind of pure Android plus some stuff, which sounds a lot like everybody else.
Yeah.
TouchWiz is pure Android plus a bunch of stuff.
Plus, pure Android with less purity now. Now with less purity.
Nice.
But I don't know. I think that was the right thing. I think they had to do that. But it's also not the case that this pops quite as much as the OnePlus One did with Cyanogen mod, because at the time that seemed like a really cool thing.
So we're talking about the OnePlus 2, the new flagship killer, supposedly. We'd be remiss not to at least discuss comparison to the Zen phone. What's the latest Zen phone now?
Okay, so the latest Zen phones, there's the Zen Phone 2, and I think there's a $199 version and a $299 version.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So the $199 version has like a Intel quad-core Atom in it. Who cares? The nicer one.
They're both Intel quad-core Atoms. There's a slight difference in clock speed. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the nicer one, the $299 one, is 2.3 gigahertz quad-core Atom. It's got 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of storage. Is the camera worse? It's a 13 megapixel camera. They don't talk about like the sensor size or anything, but the specs are fairly close. It's also a where's the screen size? Where'd it go?
It's a 5.5 inch.
So the 5.5 inch 1080p.
Yeah. So and the display in the Zenfone 2 is better than the display in the OnePlus One. So I haven't held up a OnePlus 2 next to one, but that it does seem like that those two are lining up to be like direct competitors, but cheaper on the Zenfone side, I guess.
Yeah.
One reason the Zenfone is cheaper is because Asus offsets its cost by adding a lot of junk. You got to go and like uninstall some stuff. There's kind of some junkware on the phone when you get it. So I don't know if OnePlus is doing that, but they didn't last time, I don't think.
I think that OnePlus 2 also it's got a metal body where the Zenfone is plastic. The backs on the Zenfone, or not the Zenfone, the OnePlus 2, they look a little nicer maybe. So, I mean, that's another point in its favor perhaps. So.
Yeah, the Zenfone isn't going to wow anybody with the materials. But it's not bad. I mean, again, you look at the price and you start going.
Yeah, it's like it's a $300 phone. That's pretty incredible. Right.
So yeah. Well, maybe we should do a versus with those two phones at some point. But I
mean, you got to get on the invitation list for a OnePlus 2, and that's like God knows how many people. Yeah.
Oh, are you on? Are you getting one? Is that your next phone?
I don't know if it'll be my next phone, but I jumped on the list. We'll see what happens. See how long
it'll be 2018 before they get to you.
Yeah, there were almost 500,000 people ahead of me.
Wow.
So, and I signed up, maybe 5 hours after the announcement. So I imagine it's going to take a while before my number even gets drawn.
So are you sporting a OnePlus One now?
No, I have an iPhone.
Oh, okay. But you're liking the OnePlus 2.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty slick, especially for the price. It might be something that I don't end up with, but somebody else in my house does, who's sporting an old 2013 Droid. So maybe somebody else has earned an upgrade. I don't know. And there's nobody in here that's making me say that.
Okay, then. Okay. Well, if you get one, then maybe we'll make you play with it and a Zenfone side by side and give us your impressions.
Sure.
So cool.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that too. It's always nice to have recommendations to give to people for the best budget phone around. Speaking more phones, though, it looks like Motorola's got 3 phones that we could talk about today. Yeah. Do we really want to talk about all of them?
No.
No. Okay, but yeah, Motorola had a big week too. They the Moto X is their flagship phone. They back when they were owned by Google, they released the first Moto X, and it was, I don't know how many generations they're doing now, but the Moto X is like their customizable, like semi high end, but not like top of the range smartphone. So they refreshed it this week. So it's a big phone. It's like a 5.7 inch phone. This one has like the 2560 by 1440 screen. And they were really, it's got a Snapdragon 808 in it. It's a hexa-core system on a chip. It's got 3 gigs of RAM, and they were really proud of the camera. Like, that was sort of the centerpiece of this phone's unveiling. There's this company called DxOMark that does like a lot of optical analysis for various camera systems. They were like, well, this is one of the top 3 smartphone cameras in the world. It's better than the iPhone 6. So it's a 21 megapixel. I mean, that's an absurd number. It's a 21 megapixel phone camera. They were proud of it. It could be good.
Well, they were proud of the camera in the first Moto X, and they were proud of the camera in last year's Moto X, and none of those at least came out looking good in reviews.
But this one was semi-independently verified, so who knows?
Fair enough.
But this. So it's just like their other phones. Like they have the service called Moto Maker. You can customize like various colors of the phone, like the back cover or the front bezel. This thing they call the accent color, which I guess is where the camera is. So that's the customization. I guess is one of the bigger selling points of this phone. So this could be nice. And they are supposed. Motorola seems pretty committed to delivering a fairly unblemished Android experience. So
yeah, it seems like there's a little bit of a gravity moving that way now. Some of the bigger tier 2 guys are doing that. Which I think everybody who's not Samsung is probably tier 2
right,
in the Android world, right? But no, it's good news.
Their additions really are useful. Like I said, somebody else in my house has a Moto Droid that's based on the first generation X. And it does really cool things, like if it knows when you're driving, based on sensors, and it'll read text to you. It will auto respond to phone calls and text messages for you if you let it, to say, hey, I'm driving, stuff like that. It knows, based on location, where you are, and can do certain things like talk to you. It'll automatically silence itself if it knows you're busy. There's really some useful things built into the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Luke, that is an awesome straw.
Thank you.
If you're not watching live, it's a blue curly straw. It's very elaborate.
Very grown up. That's awesome.
Yeah, about a big pack of them on Amazon. I figure I'm not too old.
No, that's great, man. It goes with the shirt and tie. I think.
Maybe I'll be sporting a different color straw every week. Who knows?
There we go.
Tune in to find out.
Okay.
So
you need to get the straw integrated to your headset, and then.
They make those with the cans and the straw around.
Well, I am testing out a new headset this week. I don't know if it'll be around for next week, though. I'm trying to settle on something. Last week's was an AKG headset, and it was just it's open back, so I've got a lot of leakage from my headphones into my mic, but I don't know if this headset's going to be the winner.
Is that like a Beats by Dre there?
No.
Made him take it off.
Audio Technica, yeah. It's
okay.
the 50, the ATH 50, or something like that. And it's just very muffled. It's got the frequency range. It just sounds cloudy.
We need to have him doing some audio reviews, guys.
If you ask, I'll do it.
There you go. Let's just see what we can do. Maybe we can get a creative sound card and some zonars and stuff, and set you down in front of them. See what happens. That might be fun.
It'd be fun.
So there are more Moto phones.
Yeah.
Do we want to?
Yeah,
I don't want to
gloss. We can briefly discuss them. Like I think the Motorola, the Moto G is really interesting because this is their budget phone. Mm-hmm. So this is like what most of the world is kind of probably looking at as a entry level phone or mid range phone, because it's only $180 in the United States for an 8GB model, or like $220 for a 16 gig model. So it's already affordable. Like past Moto Gs, been modest feature sets. This one is interesting because it's waterproof. It's got the same 13 megapixel camera, or even an improved version, they're saying, as the one in the Nexus 6. So it's got I think a pretty similar setup to the last one inside. It's got a Snapdragon 410 quad-core SoC running at 1.4 gigahertz. Probably did they even? Yeah, it's a gig of RAM on the base model and 2 gigs on the non-base model. But it's cool to me because it's just this durable phone with a good camera in it. This is like something you buy for your kids and say, you don't have to worry about trashing it.
Right.
And it's durable in,
like
adventurous
waterproof,
conditions.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's got IPX7 waterproofing, so that that means it can be submerged in a meter of water for up to 30 minutes. Like, they put a picture of a fish on the screen and dunked it in the fish bowl on stage, so it works. But that's a unique feature, and I think a low-end phone is a pretty unique feature. So,
and then the other one is this XPlay, which is what?
Yeah, so the XPlay is kind of confusing. I don't even know that we're getting this phone in the United States. I think I've read that we're not, but it's like a slightly down-spec'd Moto X with a really big battery in it. So it's supposed to get a really good battery life, kind of above all else, I think. Like, the battery is 3,630 milliamp hours. I think most phones are like 3,000 or less. If I had to guess off the top of my head.
It's also got an extra number there in our report. Look at that.
Yeah.
3,300.
33,630. That's a lot of milliamp hours.
Maybe not right.
It's a big battery.
But yeah, it's still big. So and so this is it's a little weird, right?
Yeah.
To make another version, but I guess when you're Motorola, you're just like, let's throw all this stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
So it's supposed to last, I think, for 30 hours on a charge in mixed usage. So, and they said up to 2 days on stage. I don't know if they mean like 2 days of regular use, but
it's 2 days straight talk time. So,
yeah,
no, I don't know. All right, well let's move on and see if there are any questions from the chat that we can take. I think we have a few queued up, maybe from the comments earlier today. Have we got any we should address?
I think we kind of breezed right over them because we had a question from Andrew Lortson about your Windows 10 experience, and you talked about that. We had a question about 3D XPoint memory. We talked about that too. Or, sorry,
Crosspoint.
That got me already. 3D Crosspoint memory. And we had a question about DirectX 12 and games, and we covered that.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
we're
doing good. We don't even have to read the questions anymore.
So do we have other questions? If you're in the chat and you have questions for the panel, then drop them in, and we'll try and get them done. Here's one from Tesmar. Do any of you play serious mobile games? If so, would it matter which phone you bought? I've been known to play some serious mobile games. I would say for the most part it wouldn't matter what phone you bought, with one exception, and that is I had a pretty serious Infinity Blade problem for a while. Like, pretty serious. And actually that was more on the iPad than anything else. But that's an Apple exclusive that the guys at Epic/Chair made with the Unreal Engine as kind of a showcase for that tech. So if there's an exclusive, yeah. Otherwise, I think this is an interesting question. You know what else I play on my phones? Kingdom Rush. Like all the different Kingdom Rushes. And maybe some Where's My Water and like Words with Friends. I can't name a game that is like popular that people like to play that is a real robust 3D game other than like Infinity Blade, I guess, on phones. Phone gaming doesn't use the GPU that much, does it?
I can name one. It's Hearthstone.
Oh, is Hearthstone all that?
It runs. I have an LG 8.3-inch tablet. It's got a Snapdragon 605, and Hearthstone runs really slow. But it runs fine on my phone. But my phone has a lower resolution, so I don't know exactly, where the performance differences are, or whether it's platform or something else. But I can say that Hearthstone at least seems to be really taxing, and on this kind of mid-level hardware, it doesn't run great.
I haven't done as much with mobile testing as I'd like, but one of the problems with mobile phone benchmarking is how you benchmark the GPU. And my answer usually is, well, you get instrumentation like we do on the PC side with something like Fraps or FCAT, and then you play games. And the problem with that on mobile is not many games really take advantage of the GPU in an intense way at all. And so that then starts to raise questions about, does it matter how much GPU power you have? And I guess Hearthstone could be one of those exceptions, but there aren't many of them. I don't know. I'm kind of wondering whether the requirements of mobile, things need to be cartoony. They need to run on as broad a platform as possible to sell on the App Store. Objects need to be relatively large and easy to pick out because they're on a small screen with the finger in front of them a lot of times. I don't think those go really well with the type of quasi-photorealistic graphics that you see in major PC games. And so it changes the usage model for mobile graphics. I looked at the amount of GPU power in an iPhone 6 or 6 Plus, and it's tremendous. But I don't do anything with it, and I would if there was something out there that was fun, but I just haven't seen it.
That's one of the things that's kind of weird about the Shield console, right? It's got this tremendous GPU. And unless NVIDIA is involved in the port, nothing really taxes it.
Yeah. NVIDIA's there building some of the best graphics in mobile SoCs, and then at least they're putting in the effort. But it's they go to all their PC friends, they're like, hey, port your stuff to our stuff, and we'll pay you whatever, and then it happens. But then all of a sudden, you have Doom on your tablet or your console with the controller, and they need different genres for that to work well, because it's not the same kind of device. We talked about couch gaming and how you need different stuff. So yeah, I don't know, man. I just wonder if the phone market doesn't shake out to where you don't have the same kind of GPU race that you had on the desktop.
So what games are the rest of you playing in your phones?
Games? Who has time for games?
That's how I feel too. Anything, Jeff? Ben?
I run a Game Boy Advance emulator on my iPhone 5.
Oh, nice.
And it plays the one game I have in it fine.
What game is that?
Mother 3. Most people probably have not heard of it.
Well, it's Earthbound.
It's Earthbound.
Related, right?
It's Mother. It's the third game in the Earthbound series. So, good game, excellent game. But there was never an English translation of it. The fans translated it, and released a ROM, which you need this emulator or a hacked cartridge to play. And I should probably stop before I get sued by copyright lawyers.
Should probably stop mentioning it on podcasts anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
How about you, Ben? Any games?
I'm playing Final Fantasy VI on the Shield, the Android version, and it's one of the best old school turn-based RPGs ever made. I just absolutely adore that game, and so this is my 100th run through on it. So that's on the Shield, and on my phone it's Crossy Road, Dice with Buddies, stuff like that.
I guess for me, if a game's really going to hook me for a long time, and it's going to be simple like that, it'd probably have to be an RPG. I can think of some really old RPGs I played on PC that were emulators for that, even. But I haven't found anything like that on my phone. So for better or worse, I haven't found anything like that on my phone. Probably the game I've put the most time into mobile is that drag racing simulator, but like a lot of mobile games, it's just a timed sinkhole once you get past a little upgradey portion in the beginning. I guess I can say the only game I've opened on my phone last month is a crossword puzzle. Which, by the way, we could use for benchmarks. See how many instances of that we can open up.
I feel like freemium has like just ruined everything. Why are we giving these answers?
Yes.
Like, I think maybe that's part of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not any fun really to get a game and then be told you have to pay $2 or whatever over and over and over again to keep playing it after a certain period of time. I just don't have the mental energy to figure that out.
Yeah.
Well, and all the mechanisms that they build into games.
Yeah,
For that, it was a guy at PC Arcade or Penny Arcade was talking about. It's just a different genre. If you put all that stuff into your game, you've created a game of a freemium game, which is a different genre. Because then you're working to like recharge your energy points or save your whatevers, and that's what you're playing instead of playing the type of game that it was originally like kind of conceived as. So I don't know. I do think that has taken some of the air out of this stuff. There was a day when I would go on the App Store in the evening every so often and just start looking through the top games, download them and play them, because there was a lot of good stuff. And if there was a free version and I liked it, you go buy the full one, and it worked. And the freemium stuff happened, and all the top charts are clogged with junk.
Yep.
Nobody's arguing.
Nope. Nobody's arguing. They can be really catchy and addictive for the first 2 hours, and then after that, it's like, oh, I never want to play it again.
Yeah. We have other questions from the chat?
Yeah, we got one more question. I'm going to choose to pronounce his name as Vivaldi. Question here is, as a penguin, I really enjoyed the Samsung Linux trim article. What are the chances we could get some more Linuxy attention from Tech Report writers?
I think it could happen if we got a writer who was really into Linux every day, which we might do. But like for me, it's more about like, oh, it's our web server, or I need to like hack into an Android tablet, so I'm going to run Linux. Otherwise, it's just not what I do every day. But there's no question that there's a pretty good segment of folks who enjoy it, and so I don't know. Maybe Jeff Campman, like, you should make that happen. Like, find somebody who's a Linux guy and make him write stuff for us. I'm happy to do that.
I mean, we have nothing against it, but
Speak for yourself, Jeff.
Yeah, I got a little something against it. No, I mean, it's great for a web server, but no.
I mean, it's a thing. It's a thing that could happen.
This is the year for Linux on the desktop. I keep hearing
It's always the year for Linux on the desktop.
This is it.
All right. Well, we can answer other questions from the chat a little bit later, but let's talk about the variations of the GTX 980 Ti. Scott, you got those into review, right?
I did, and this is kind of an interesting exercise, guys, to play with different versions of pretty much the best graphics card around, right? I mean, the R9 Fury X and the GTX Titan X are the two potential things that would maybe take the crown off of this. But because the Titan X is just NVIDIA's reference design, and because the Fury X is really kind of underperforms in some aspects, then this is the thing. And the nice thing about the 980 Ti is that it does have a bunch of aftermarket versions, and they all offer some enhancements over the NVIDIA reference design. But writing about them is like, I gotta take out the Ferrari and the Lamborghini and the Porsche, and then come back and tell you what I don't like about each one. I mean, it's a weird experience because they're all really good, right? And they're all $669 or so. Video cards that are just awesome, and it kind of comes down to little things about minor differences in performance of a few percentage points here or there, stock clocked versus overclocked. And I mean they all come with a little bit higher stock clock than the reference card, and then you can overclock them. And generally, the one that's the fastest out of the box at its stock clock is going to be the fastest overclocked. That's what I found. And then they all have amazing coolers, but it's just a question of, which one which one performs best, and also which one do you like best, and which one do you like the tuning on it best. For instance, like the Gigabyte card, which I should pull up here, has a great cooler. Gigabyte has done a good job with this. This is the same thing they've basically been rolling out for a couple generations, maybe a little beefier variant than some. It's not super tall above the PCI Express slots like some of these, and it's a little bit long, so it depends on your case whether or not it'll fit. I think it's 11.1 inches long. It's in the article, but the way that they have tuned their card is they want to keep the temperature around like 72 degrees or so, I think, and as a result, the fans spin pretty fast as you run a game. And like the Asus card that we tested, or the MSI, they'll tolerate higher temperatures, and so they don't push as hard on fan speed. So on the decibel meter, the Gigabyte is louder, and you can notice it. It's perceptibly louder. But it's not that the cooler is less effective. It's just that it's been tuned to work harder. And so it kind of comes down to sort of like, what is your value judgment here on what you want out of a card? And then also, like, how much are you willing to tweak or tune? And I think you could set a custom fan curve on the Gigabyte. But, doing this article is a weird experience. And, like I said, you do really good stuff, and then you got to find the flaws in like these great products. So, it's fun. It's fun to play with them. But at the end of the day, I'm not saving anybody from a stinker, because there aren't any stinkers to be had in this bunch.
Now, when you reviewed the variations of the GTX 960, there, like, you really were stumped, it seemed like, to come up with a recommendation. But here you do have a recommendation. Yeah,
and there's a couple reasons for that. One of them is that the GTX 960 is a really low power GPU, and everybody stuck like a mid-range cooler on it, like something that you could put on a GPU that's much more powerful, like a GTX 980. So they all had massive overkill on the coolers on the GTX 960, and so like it was kind of take your pick. They're all complete overkill. There's no there's no point in worrying about whether this cooler is better than that one, because neither one of them is being stressed. The other thing is the noise floor for my GPU test rigs was around 35 decibels, and I since have switched the fans and got it down to around 29. And so I can tell you the differences at idle on these things. The thing about that actually, with these cards, that kind of kills me about that is there's no difference at idle that's meaningful between any of these aftermarket cards, because EVGA, MSI, Asus, and Gigabyte all stop the fans when the GPU temperature is below a certain point. So if you're just using the Windows desktop, or you're like even with light gaming, something like Dota even, then the fans may not spin up at all. And so the thing is basically silent. And then I'm just measuring like the ambient noise in the room, or the very low amount of noise coming from my new CPU cooler fans. So I don't know. There, at least though, I could tell some differences because I got rid of I lowered the noise floor so that I could tell. So under load, there are clear differences between these cards in terms of the amount of noise they produce. It's perceptible and it's measurable. And in this case, the MSI was really interesting because at 36 decibels, it was quieter than the Radeon R9 Fury X with the water cooler. And so that hurt the rationale behind the Fury X a little bit. Just the Fury X runs cooler. If you care about that, it's like 52 degrees, which is amazing. But the MSI 980 Ti is plenty cool, and it's literally quieter than the Fury X. So yeah, differences are there. They're interesting. A lot of it is like lights. They all have glowing lights that you can configure.
Some of them the most important part, right?
Well, I mean, this is what we're adding, right? Some of them you can configure them. Some of them it's just like the throbbing white light when the GPU is being used. that kind of thing. They'll have back plates so the card is protected and so the board has got some rigidity to it. The reference card doesn't, but the reference cooler has a lot of attach points on the PCB. It's not going to sag at all. So, I mean, I don't know. The reference card isn't bad, but these are all better. So, you know, my pick for the overall was the Asus Strix card. And that card is interesting because this is the same cooler we saw on the R9 Fury and the Radeon R9 390X from Asus in recent reviews. And it is huge. It looks, if you look at this picture, that kind of looks just like a video card, but then look at where the PCI Express slot covers stop, and then how much more board keeps going up. And the reason the proportions don't look weird is because it's super long, too. It's 12 inches. And so this is the biggest, physically biggest video card like I've ever maybe seen, except for some triple slot things or some crazy stuff like that. And I think, where is it? I would get it and put it, it's sitting over there. I get it and hold it up for you. But so Asus managed to have a great combination of like default clocks and overclocking capability and noise levels, both at default clocks and overclocked, compared to the other guys. And one reason they did it is just that they're taking up more room in your case and putting more metal on the cooler. They've got a custom board design and some things like that. Obviously, the power delivery is this massive section here. You know, goes wider than a normal video card is tall by like 1.5 inches or so. So
it's like a substation on the card.
It's crazy, and so you're getting more hardware, and I guess it seems to be better. But you know, the thing is that you're paying for it in space. So if your case will swallow this card, if it's not going to get in the way of other stuff in your system, it's my pick. But you know, if that's at all in jeopardy, then you should get one of the others. And really, like the slowest card, there aren't any slow ones, but the least speedy card we tested is the EVGA. But that one is the same size as the reference card. It's 10.5 inches long, doesn't stick up above the PCI Express slots at all. It's super quiet, and like maybe you should just get that if there's any doubt. So it does depend on what you want out of a card when you're shopping in this category, and what type of case you're going to put it in. This Asus is not going to slide into your mini ITX case.
So
we have more questions in the chat.
There is one more. You can take it. I can grab it.
Nah, go for it, Jeff. Your turn.
So Selmore asks, do we want to see an OLED, I guess, desktop monitor? And how likely would it be for more OLED monitors to come out with 1440p resolutions? I think we should generalize that and say, how many OLED desktop monitors are likely to come out at all?
That's Selmore asking the question.
Yeah, Selmore.
Yeah, do I want to see one? Yeah. How much will it cost? Like 10 grand?
I mean, OLED, like it's been one of these things that's been coming soon for 10 years or something.
Like, they're great screens for phones. Samsung's latest OLEDs and things like the Note 4 and Galaxy S6 are beautiful.
Right. The small screens are great, but like seems like it's had trouble making its way into bigger form factors for some reason. I don't know why that is.
Well, I think one of them is economics.
Yeah.
And another one is the life cycle on a phone is relatively short. So in terms of if there are questions about durability,
right, and OLEDs do burn out.
But putting it on a phone makes sense. Yeah,
right.
And so I saw like 3 years ago at CES, I saw like a TV-sized OLED thing that literally, I think it was like 40-50 grand. That was like a demo that one of the Japanese electronics manufacturers, I forget which one, was showing off. It was beautiful, and it looked great, but it's not. I mean, it just hasn't happened yet that you can go buy like an inexpensive OLED TV to compete with LCD. And, that's kind of the issue, is until it gives us what we hope for, which always the promise with OLED was you can produce them kind of like you would print with an inkjet printer. And so we could just have big sheets and just print OLEDs and line the walls with them. And instead, like, they've been prohibitively expensive. So, this stuff maybe gets refined. It has to get refined to where it can beat LCD, and it hasn't done so.
Now, it looks like LG actually has OLED TVs, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all the other TV manufacturers that were looking into it backed out.
I thought Sony maybe had one. I'm not sure, but I mean, these are demos. These are like priced to like if you really want to buy one, you can, but they're super expensive.
Well, I'm on Best Buy's website right now, and they've got 4 models. Not that they're the best in their price. It's the 1080p models overpriced for other 1080p TVs. The 4K ones are overpriced compared to other 4K TVs.
Right. But they're out there.
They're out there, yeah. And so I thought all the others, Samsung said, we're going to discontinue looking into this. So LG seems to be doing it. I wonder if they're not expecting them to last very long. They're expecting color shift over time, or if they've figured out something that others haven't yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't spent much time with them. How much you paying for 1080p? What size TV? What are you paying?
They got a 55-inch 1080p 3D TV for $2,300.
That's not so bad.
And they've got the 4K version for $4,500.
I would never pay that, but not with LCDs being as good as they are and as cheap as they are, right? That's the issue.
I mean, this would be superior. It's just it costs more, and you don't know about the reliability. There's no competition at this point.
Would it be superior? That's an interesting question. They have great contrast ratios. Some OLEDs don't have great off-angle viewing. I think I'd want to spend some time with it before I'd say it's definitely superior to a comparable LCD TV.
Now, from the same CES show that was a really big OLED debut, I remember reading about, I think it was a Sony TV that they made, I guess what you can only call a true LED TV, that every pixel was made up of subpixels of independent LEDs. And so that was supposed to have the same vibrancy and color as the OLED TVs using LEDs, but of course they're really tiny and packed really densely, which sounds really expensive to manufacture.
That sounds horrifically impractical.
But everybody said it looked amazing. Now that was 1080p, not 4K, if I recall. But I wonder if there's other ways to get to the same place that we want to be, where each pixel is emits its own light. You don't have to have backlight, and I wonder how quickly you could get refresh rates to go, how much you could lower motion blur or ghosting or anything else that can be an issue on some screens.
LCDs now there's actually marketed under a Dolby HDR, I think is the name. They have a capability that's basically localized backlight dimming. The LEDs that are in a backlight on a TV are sort of they brighten a region of pixels instead of individual pixels, but you can compensate for that and using what basically is kind of like a little pixel shader algorithm, and have like in areas of the screen where there's really sort of dark scene, you turn the backlights down, and then bright areas you turn the backlights up, and you use the panel to kind of compensate for the sort of bleed that you get because they're region-based backlighting, and you get a nice result that is a high dynamic range type of result out of an LCD. I've seen it, and I've seen it with really powerful backlights, and with this company called Brightside that eventually Dolby bought years ago, had this thing with like a big thick power cable at a Radeon launch, and they plugged it in and proceeded to blow your minds with this amazing high dynamic range display. Since then, it has been brought into, it's a thing that you can license from Dolby and use. It has been brought into consumer versions, and it's doable now to use localized backlight dimming to get an HDR effect with deep blacks out of an LCD. One of the issues that we have is that the content authoring stuff isn't quite there yet. Right? It's all kind of, there's a certain dynamic range that we have for content and video, and we could go further, but we haven't. So a lot of the displays that are capable of that kind of thing I'd call it the Samsung thing, stretch out the contrast from what like originally was captured and authored, and make it pop more, right? But they're doing it at the expense of being a faithful display.
Yeah, I don't like HDR images. I'll just say it.
Well, I mean, if they're captured HDR,
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, some of the techniques used these days, like to convert them into like a method that's viewable on conventional displays, looks really gross. But I guess, I mean, I don't know. Like,
you don't like tone mapping?
No, not in the least.
I think that I think that the consumer electronics industry is actually they've incorporated some of this possibilities into new standards. I think maybe in the next 5-10 years we may get to the point where we have HDR content, HDR capable displays. But LCDs can do that, and they can have nice black levels using techniques like that. So yeah, OLED's awesome. We'll bring them on if we get those too. But we need the whole picture. Mm-hmm.
Since we're talking about future display tech, do we know anything about Rec 2020?
Nope.
Outside of our area's expertise. All right, Nathan, cut that out. Cut it out of the podcast. Any other questions? We should wrap this up.
I think if we don't have any other questions, I'm ready to wrap it up.
I don't see anything.
Yeah. I think we're good.
Cool.
All right.
Let's call it.
So, what are you guys working on, Jeff?
I'm working on a bunch of stuff. I have a mouse review. I've had some Logitech mice in my possession for a while. I've been working with. I've got a review done. Hopefully, we'll have that out in the next couple days. And then working with some of our other writers to get some reviews out. So.
Okay, great.
We'll see those. We'll see those in time.
Ben, are you able to talk about anything?
It's not exciting. I've talked a little bit about it tonight. I've been playing with a Shield console for a little over a month, and I've formulated some thoughts, and it's kind of cool. We'll see that eventually.
And what about you, Scott?
Like I said, I've got all my test rigs I'm setting up with Windows 10, and so I'm going to do some Windows 10 testing. And I had the CPU side of Damage Labs going for the first time in a while, so I'm going to have some new CPU tests with Windows 10. And then on the GPU side, I have completely collected some data before I published the 980 Ti review about memory scaling and 4 gig versus 8 gig, and it's really interesting. I haven't published, so at some point maybe I'll publish that. But I don't know. There's a ton going on, and I can't tell you too many specifics, but it's going to be good.
Great. Always exciting. Well, this brings us to the end of the episode. If you have questions for next time, email them to jeff@jcampman@techreport.com. That's Campman with a K. As always, we'll do our best to answer all the questions we can. If you want more, be sure to check out techreport.com to get the latest scoop with our news and reviews. Until next time, I'm Luke, and thanks for listening. Or should I say, may the force be with you.
Why would you say that?
I don't know.
Because he's Luke.
Oh!
You gotta have something for the little bloopers at the end, right?
There you go.